Did you even take any of those?
I did not, because I'm an old man who's paranoid. Back in the day, I would have loved it.
They were micro doses.
It doesn't matter. I'm now scared. Once you have a child, like I'm afraid of just going off the rails, getting naked on top of a table in Vegas.
Painting your testicles and asking for sweatpants.
Yeah, kicking down the door or screaming at people on a plane that somebody's not real.
Remember when we first met John McClane? Argyle picked him up from the plane and took him down the Nakatomi Tower at the Christmas party. And the terrorists were overzealous, but it was sweet when they killed Ellis. And with a little help from Alan, John McClane kicked ass.
Welcome back to Shat the Movies, the podcast where we answer the question, were the movies we loved when we were growing up really that good? Have you ever caught yourself thinking, why don't they make movies like they used to? Can you still remember spending your Friday night searching for the perfect movie rental at Blockbuster Video? Do you know what Blockbuster Video is? If you answered yes, then this is a podcast for you. I am one of your hosts, Gene Lyons. Alongside him is my co-host, Big D, Dick Ebert.
Good evening.
Each week, we take a look back in time and decide if our favorite films still hold up. The movies we cover are chosen by you, the listeners, who generously commission the films you love. If you'd like to see all the movies we have covered, will cover, want to choose one for yourself, please visit shatpod.com and have a look. At the end of each podcast, we'll provide you, the audience, with the number of wipes each movie takes to get off your respective butts. So thank you so much for listening. If you have not already, hit that subscribe button and share with a friend. It's how we help the podcast grow. Additionally, subscribe to our sister podcast, Shat on TV. We review TV series such as Westworld, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, True Detective, Lovecraft Country, and Watchmen. Find all the information and past episodes at shatpod.com/TV. And finally, to hang out with us live, follow and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's Shat the Movies on YouTube, where we play video games, host watch parties, and edit this podcast live. All that being said, Big D, what movie are we reviewing today?
So, Gene, one of the things I like about this podcast is we try to give films perspective. We try to go back, see, did they hold up? Do our memories match how the film is? What would we think if it came out today? And this is a great film. Coming off of The Lost City of Gold and thinking about, we did Speed and talking about the Speed sequel. We had a category way back, which was bad sequels. We had done Predator 2. Speed 2 was on it. This film was on it. A lot of bad sequels. So I think it's great to go back and watch this, to finally put a lot of our bad sequels, ranking them in order, because they might not have gone the way we thought when we put them on there. And that's why tonight, I think we got to close out this category of really bad sequels. And I was excited when one of our great listeners, Ryan, wrote in and said, please go back and review the 1991 sequel to Highlander. And it has to be Highlander II, The Quickening.
Ryan wrote in and said, hey, Shat crew, thanks for taking my commission. After giving the original Highlander 4.5 wipes in one of your first episodes, I figured you wouldn't be eager to review the second one. It is somehow much worse. I hope you found it to be the kind of bad where you find it funny and not the kind of bad where you get mad at me for ruining your evening. My cousin and her husband talked me into watching this gloriously bad movie, which opens on the planet Zeist. I had them pause the movie and clarify a few points from the first original. Wasn't it set on Earth? I hadn't seen the original since around 1990, but I figured a quick recap would get me up to speed. Plus, I was a little high at the time, so I was aware that I could be wrong. Turns out they had retconned most of the original for whatever reason, and we stopped to rewatch the first movie. Wow. I remember the original being respectable, but I was wrong. Anywho, my brain couldn't take it, so I just fell asleep within the first 30 minutes. I watched them both back to back a few days later, completely sober to take it all in, and the second one is definitely a thing of legend. Plan 9 from Outer Space kind of bad, but with a huge budget. We've watched it many times since, and it is truly a study of what all can go wrong when making a movie. It had a $34 million budget, and the cast included Sean Connery, Michael Ironside, Virginia Madsen, and John C. McGinley. So it's a pretty heavy-hitting cast for such a laughably bad movie. Thank you so much for what you do, and I can't wait to hear your thoughts on this movie. Wryan from Madison, Wisconsin.
Talk about perspective. I knew we were rough on Highlander, but after watching this, I think it's how were we a 4.5 wipe?
Oh, I see. Now I discovered through this rewatch that this movie is much better than the original Highlander because of its quirks. There's a movie within a movie, and we'll get to that. It also might be the effect of watching Alan Quartermain in The Lost City of Gold in the sense that anything after watching that seems like a relatively good movie.
Yeah, I don't know if I messaged you. I was saying this makes me want to go back and watch King Solomon's Mine. I wouldn't go as far as The Lost City of Gold, but until I started to read some of your thoughts and start to look at it in more of a fun way and to what Ryan wanted us to do, It was a tough one, but in the end, I'm starting to agree with you. There is something in there under just layers of onions and shit.
Well, be careful, Big D. You don't want to be too edgy on this podcast. You want to be too far outside the mainstream.
Oh, yeah.
You don't want to follow my French New Wave ideas about film noir. Well, Highlander II, The Quickening is a 1991 science fiction movie starring Christopher Lambert, Virginia Madsen, Michael Ironside, and Sean Connery. It is the second installment in the Highlander film series and a sequel of the 1986 fantasy film Highlander. Set in the year 2024, the plot concerns Connor MacLeod, who regains his youth and immortal abilities and must free Earth from the Shield, an artificial ozone layer that has fallen under the control of a corrupt corporation. The film was shot almost entirely in Argentina before and after the country's economy crashed. As the local economy experienced hyperinflation, the film's investors took direct control of production and the final edit, removing director Russell Mulcahy while changing parts of the story. The resulting film contradicts the established canon of Highlander in depicting immortals as aliens, featuring the inexplicable resurrection of Juan Sanchez Villalobos Ramirez and altering the concept of the Quickening. Highlander 2 received negative reviews from critics and is considered to be one of the worst films ever made. The original theatrical edition was a box office bomb, grossing $16 million in the U.S. on a production budget of $34 million. In 1995, an alternate director's cut called the Renegade Version was released to home video that attempted to address many of the story problems, such as removing all mention of the planet Zeist and the idea that immortals are aliens. This was followed by a special edition DVD release in 2004, which was largely the same cut as the Renegade Version, but with some altered special effects. The sequel, Highlander III, The Sorcerer, follows the events of the first film, completely ignoring the events and revelations of Highlander 2. So, Big D, we always ask where you were when you first saw this movie and what your memories are of it. This week, it's Highlander 2. What have you got?
So I remember liking the original, from 86. Contrary to the score that we gave it, I remember at the time, I liked it. And back in the day, I should have wanted to watch this. And I do not even remember it in the theater. I don't remember any of the trailers to it. Once it came out on VHS, I remember it on the new release wall, but I just never made time to watch it. And my first viewing was, like you said, the Renegade version, which is supposed to be an improvement. I don't even want to imagine what the full original theatrical version was like.
I watched this on Tubi, and thankful the Renegade version was the only version they had, so there was no choice for me, and they probably spared me a little bit of pain. But I worked my way ass backward into the Highlander series. So I actually started with a TV show in the 90s as a kid. And then I watched the theatrical version of Highlander 2, but completely erased it from my memory. And then finally watched the original 1986 Highlander for Shat the movies. At that time, it was the harshest panning of any film we'd done. Like, we didn't realize how mean we could actually be, because several times during that recording, you, Raj, and I were like, wow, I really hate to be this mean, but this movie's really terrible. And when I heard that Highlander 2 was allegedly the worst sequel of all time, I thought, I don't remember it being that bad, but I don't remember a lot about it. So this time, like I said, I watched the Renegade version, and it's certainly an improvement over what I'd seen before.
Well, it's got to be, like you said there, the info about the plot, that maybe the investors took over and they just didn't know how to edit. Maybe it has something to do technically. Maybe it has something to do with the sound mixing. I really have no idea. I almost have to go back and watch it, but I'd be scared is what I would find.
It's one thing to not know how to edit. It's another thing to say, hey, we're going to take over the Terminator franchise, and instead of being robots, they're actually subterranean mole men that look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Yeah, I don't know.
A lot of cocaine.
Let's hit the trailer.
Somewhere in the future, a man from the past,
Find MacLeod and kill him.
is all that stands between life and death.
There simply isn't enough energy on the planet to take down the shield without killing us all.
The world is dying, MacLeod. The shield has to come down.
Greetings, Highlander. You cold? Rather glad heard the magic works.
You got a light?
Let's have some fun. Remember, you called me. Just remember the quickening.
It sounds like magic.
Well, it is, kind of.
Christopher Lambert, Sean Connery. Highlander II, The Quickening.
In the 1990s, pollution has destroyed the ozone layer, leading to millions of deaths, including the wife of Connor MacLeod, who uses his wealth to save the world. By 1999, Connor supervises a scientific team headed by Dr. Alan Naiman, who create a shield to protect the Earth from radiation. The side effect is condemning the planet to constant darkness, high temperatures, and humidity. The shield falls under the control of the corrupt executive David Blake, who imposes heavy fees on countries for continued protection from solar radiation. So Big D, I was expecting, much like in Beowulf, to be wowed by some sort of weird post-apocalyptic world that we were going to be welcomed into. But as this movie opens, we get the most 1991 setup of all time. We've got the script on screen that's telling us about what's going on, and it's the ozone layer. We were all freaked out, by the way. If you're not as old as we are, we were freaked out about the ozone layer back in the 90s. There was this urban legend about a guy like in Australia who got hit by a beam where there wasn't ozone and his nose melted off. I remember in elementary school, we were like singing songs about polystyrene and CFCs and the ozone layer. I was fully expecting Highlander 2 to open up and we would see this Mad Max post-apocalyptic desert war zone. Instead, I'm looking at this movie and thinking life under the shield looks pretty dope. It's always dark outside. It's always raining. There's this Art Deco vibe, which makes no sense because the shield went up in like 1999. So things should just look like the 90s, I would imagine, but whatever. And I'm not saying that these sets are Blade Runner quality. I know we shit all over Blade Runner, but it's a beautiful movie to look at. But I would live in this world. It's interesting. It's pretty.
I don't know why, if the problem is the ozone layer, why wouldn't you tunnel? I think that would make more sense than trying to erect a global shield. But to talk about the way it looks, yeah, I think it does look kind of beautiful. It looks very much appropriate to the time when it came out in the 90s. It reminded me of Gotham from the Tim Burton set. It looks very much like the set there. And you hint at it. I see so many other films that this took a piece from. It's that dystopian hybrid. You got Dune. You got the Sand World. You got the people fighting to coming together under a new leader. You had a little Blade Runner. It's got the rainy city, the lighting in general, and the Tyrell Corp, the pyramid. It looks just like that. You got some Escape from New York. We got the wacky cab driver. We got the dam/shield power plant set. We got the police force. We got a ton of RoboCop. We got the evil corporation with a boardroom shooting and a guy going out the window. We got a girl with big boobs out getting raped on the side of the road. We got street gangs. Then you got also those in-movie videos, which I think are probably one of the best parts, where you got the in-flight movie, the plane crashing, or the TV series, The Psychic Cook. That's like, I'd buy that for $1. Then you got more crows and pigeons flying around in the dark than The Crow. This was very appropriate to the 90s.
And Big D, I think we discovered in this movie also the key to Christopher Lambert acting. We've seen him in Beowulf. We've seen him in Mortal Kombat. He seems to have difficulty. I mean, shit, we've seen him in the original Highlander. He seems to have difficulty delivering lines. He struggles a little bit to emote. Here we see him with a shit ton of makeup on and realize that's the key to Chris. This is the best acting he's ever done. Like, he was having his like little flashbacks and he's just kind of doing his old man Christopher Lambert thing, scowling. I'm feeling something there. But during our Beowulf review, you referred to old ass Christopher Lambert, who, for the record, was younger than each of us was when Beowulf was filmed. He was in his early 40s. But now I get why you called him old ass Christopher Lambert, because Christopher Lambert somehow hyper aged between 1991 and 1999. We see him here in 91. We saw him in Beowulf in 99. It's a different man. And I'm not talking about the movie makeup that makes Connor MacLeod look like Dan Aykroyd in Nothing But Trouble. Christopher Lambert actually looks like a young guy in Highlander 2. Like, he looks kind of fit. He looks handsome. The 90s must have just kicked his ass, because by 1999, he looks ancient, and it's not just the white hair.
Yes, and you know he loves his appearance. He thinks he is a good-looking guy, Mr. Lambert, with the ladies. I thought old Lambert, old Highlander, MacLeod, I liked it. I wish he had stayed old for more of the movie, because he was forced to be a character. In every other movie, you could be like, hey, Raiden, you are now Raiden, the God of Thunder. He's like, no, I'm Christopher Lambert. He's always the same person, but you put that mask on, he's an old guy struggling to stay awake at the opera. He's driving a car, having a drink. He actually, for the first time, thought he was an actor.
Is it just me, or did he have like a Billy Crystal, like old New York Jew accent? What was that all about?
He did. He really did. I think I told you, he was getting into the character for the very first time in his career.
Thanks, Mickey. I think I have a drink. Well, in 2024, Connor is a frail old man. While watching an opera, he flashes back to 500 years ago on the Immortals' home planet of Zeist. Connor was chosen by Juan Sanchez Villalobos Ramirez, a Zeist sorcerer, to lead a rebellion against the evil general Katana. Using the Quickening, Ramirez creates an unbreakable bond between him and Connor. Katana and his troops crush the rebellion and exile MacLeod and Ramirez to Earth. Locked into ageless lives, immortals sent to Earth must fight each other until there is only one left. The survivor will win the prize, capital P, a choice to either remain on Earth as immortal or return to Zeist with their past crimes forgotten. Okay, this is the flashback to end all flashbacks. In this one flashback, we basically take 90% of what we learned about the Immortals in the original Highlander and just fucking set it on fire. This rule set for what's going on, it's weirder than Mortal Kombat, and everybody on the cast, everybody in the crew, they know it. So your punishment for fucking treason, you tried to take over the whole planet, rebelled against a general and a tribunal, is you're sent forward in time to never age as long as you fight other dudes who were also sent forward in time until only one of you survives. And then when that happens, you get to decide whether you come back in time or you stay in the future and you just grow old. I have so many questions right off the bat. How many dudes are going to get sent forward in time? Is there a limit to that? And if you're in the past, say you're General Katana, how do you know that you won't send another guy in the future to the more future? Like, when do they get dropped in, and when can you stop doing it? It doesn't make any sense. And thankfully, as I'm getting frustrated with all this, there is this beautiful nod and a wink to the audience when Louise, who's the head of Cobalt, this like resistance force, she points out that nothing MacLeod is explaining about this makes any sense. And he just fucking Christopher Lambert just hand waves it away. It says, it's magic.
No, and a lot of this film, like a movie like this, we can talk about what we see on screen, but I also find the stuff behind the screen much more interesting. So that's going to be a big part of this. But you know that shitty fashion brand Shein, like where you can buy like a $2 shirt or $3? They're fucking terrible.
It's like half of Sarah's wardrobe. Yeah.
Okay, so there's rumors about like notes being written like on the tags, like help me, let me out. I think we see some of that here. You talk about Louise, and she gives us more than just a nod. She breaks the fucking fourth wall, and I can feel the crew, the writers, everybody screaming from help from Argentina in the middle of a revolution with their budget and their backers being pulled out. And you're right. I'm going to read to you. She knows how ridiculous the plot is, and she's writing a little help note on the tag of the movie for us. And this is what she says to us. You come from another planet, and you're mortal there, but you're immortal here until you kill all the guys from there who are not coming here. And then you're mortal here unless you go back there or some more guys There, come here, in which case you become immortal here again. That's word for word the script. She acknowledges to the audience, hey, help. Please send help to Argentina.
Now, we've had lots of crazy theories on this podcast. Sometimes we think that two different movies exist in the same universe. We think everybody's gay. But on this one, I'm going to go out on a limb here. And at least if this isn't true, this is the way that I chose to watch this movie, which is, like I mentioned before, this is a movie within a movie. The actors are all doing a whole other thing inside of it, realizing the incredibly weird world they've been cast into, how bizarre all these choices are, and they're just having a blast with it.
We're going to get into that, and I hope that's true because, I've read stories about Christopher Lambert and Sean Connery being really good friends on set. So I'm imagining in my mind some fanfic that they're in a bar, they're getting fucked up, and they said, dude, let's ride with this. Yes. Let's have some fucking fun, man. Don't tell the backers or the director what we're doing. Let's all be in this film and hijack it.
And please, if you guys haven't seen this movie recently, you didn't watch it prior to listening to this podcast, please watch it with that in mind. It will change the experience. It's like dropping acid and then watching the movie all over again.
I mean, because it's so odd. I don't remember any other sequel in history that 100% unilaterally just burns the plot of the first film.
Yeah, what we've seen in the past is in a later installment, they may forget what happened in the last one, right? Like we saw that like in Halloween, right? Where it's just they forget what happened in the past. They go back to, the storyline from before, which we get here in Highlander 1 and Highlander 3. But very rarely do you ever see it, and I don't think we've ever seen it on this podcast, where they just trash everything you learned in movie one.
You trash, and I talked about Star Wars, how the second trilogy retconned a ton of shit in the original. Like that, the reason why they tried to invade Hoth with the walkers, the AT-AT, is because they said you can't have shields in atmosphere. Yep, in Rise of Skywalker, they did. Oh, guess what? You know what? Maybe Obi-Wan should have used his healing power to save Qui-Gon Jinn. No, we didn't have to fucking do that. And I think they waste so much time. You've built up the first movie. We know what we're in for. You establish it. It's popular enough to make a sequel. And I'm struggling to understand all the problems set aside, right? The script went through many different revisions, but somewhere in the beginning, there was that thought, let's abandon the complete original of it. And I've never seen anything like this. They've taken like the new Coke formula. Let's throw out what the fuck worked and let's just change it up. They diverge from what worked. It's dudes with swords fighting, heads coming off lightning. Instead, we're going to focus on like this stupid shield, an evil corporation, a police force. It's dumb. They chose the future setting and the tone and the darkness, and we're going to make it this type of movie before the plot. The fish out of water parts, I think, are great, where you got Sean Connery. We dealt with that in the first movie. It all works. I don't understand. And so the only other movie I could think of, Gene, and I'm going to read this description to you. Tell me if you can tell what movie it is. It's the only other film that completely took a fucking 180. This is the description. Play at home, folks. The year is 2455. The place is old Earth. Once the shimmering blue jewel of the galaxy, our Earth is now a contaminated planet abandoned for centuries. Yet humans have returned to the deadly place they once fled, not to live, but to research the ancient rustic artifacts and the bygone civilization that caused their environmental disaster. And little does the most recent landing party or intrepid young explorers realize the fate that awaits them. What movie is that, Gene?
Is that Ice Pirates?
No, that's Friday the 13th. That's Jason X. That's Jason X. That's Jason in space. The relic they find, I think, is like his hockey mask. It's so dumb. You had something that works. The blueprint is there. Just make it easy on yourselves.
And to make matters worse, they don't just tell us about a few bizarre threads. They have to explore every single one in depth and quite lavishly. We've often repeated on this podcast the age-old film advice. Show me, don't tell me, right? I don't need a bunch of exposition. Just let me see the thing. It's a movie. It's supposed to be. Highlander 2 was like, all right, you want to see it? I'll show you all of it. So Connor MacLeod, he was married several times. There was Heather, there was Brenda. In this case, it's his most recent wife. They were married. She died. And surely they could have just had, I don't know, maybe a picture of his late wife on the wall. for Louise to see, or have Connor just in a conversation with Alan, his old friend, talk about, how he lost his wife. No. In Highlander 2, we got to see her die. And not only that, we have to see that she's got burns on her face from the ozone, but she got all her hair, by the way, for some reason. Hair's all there, face is burned. And then the camera pans out. Oh, you got to know she's among lots of other dying people. Lots of people died at this time. And I'm like, okay, we fucking get it. Then the camera pans off even more, and they're all dying under this giant sign that says solar radiation ward. Like, okay, we get it. We also get detailed accounts of Connor's life as like a sea captain and a football player. And I'm just screaming at the TV screen, dude, we get it. He's old. He did lots of shit. We established that. We know if he's still alive in 2024 that he probably did some shit between then and the 1500s.
I mean, we get the Wayne's World transition too. It starts with like the voiceover. It's all like, let me tell you a story. So you start hearing the wife being like, Connor, we have to do this to protect the people. And then it fades into it. And yeah, we get the ward. All we needed was like a bright neon sign pointing at the people that, yes, this is how they got burned by the ozone. But what about the fact that I didn't need the backstory to see the shield kicked off? I know that. We see the model. They're talking about how they invented it, how they kicked it off. Do I think we're going to get a flashback? No. But then the voiceover comes in. Do you remember that day? Oh, I remember that day. And it fades into the model, the whole thing. We get the Oppenheimer moment. He puts the glasses on. It's going to be this big fucking thing. But I will disagree with you on one thing. I do like the old stories of his life. I like that in the first one. The story of him as a fucking sea captain in his bloody journal, that's got to be the worst thing. If you're immortal, don't go to sea. Don't go where you could die and get trapped. Imagine being the only survivor on a drifting derelict ship in the 1800s. That's fucking torture.
It's like when they stuck Louis in that wall in Emma's favorite movie, Interview with the Vampire.
That's very true. Very true.
Awakening from his flashback, Connor is approached by Louise Marcus, the leader of the anti-SHIELD group Cobalt. Louise believes the ozone layer has returned to normal, but the SHIELD Corporation is keeping it quiet to maintain revenue. Louise asks Connor to help her take down the SHIELD, but MacLeod says he is too old. Meanwhile, General Katana sends assassins Corda and Reno to Earth to kill Connor. MacLeod defeats Reno and Corda, using their quickenings to regain his youth and summon Ramirez back to life. So, just as I was starting to buy into this movie, we get introduced to Corda and Reno, these assassins, arguably the worst assassins of all time. General Katana really doesn't think his shit through. Like, this guy is not a military mastermind. Connor MacLeod, in this movie, he's like one rough shit away from dying a natural death. This guy is hanging on by a thread. So General Katana, what does he do? He sends two living fountains of youth into the future. And of course, they can't be proficient killers. Like, they couldn't send here's what you do. You send one guy with a net. That's all you need. One guy with a net, one guy with an axe. You throw the net over MacLeod. He's got no friends in the future. Except for Mickey, Johnny, whatever. Chop his head off and you're good. Instead, we get Reno and Corda. They're like manic porcupine men. One's got a hoverboard. The other one's got like a hang glider on his back. And yes, it leads to some on-screen fun. Like, there's like this whole aerial joust thing. But the character design itself, despite this world being really well designed, the character design is stupid. At one point, Connor and Reno are fighting on top of a train. And Reno, for some reason, he's wearing goggles.
Yeah.
Both guys are wearing goggles. They're fighting on this train. It passes under some running water. And I think, oh, hot damn, this is where the goggles come into play. Like, he'll be able to fight through the water because he's got goggles on. Nope. Reno is one of two people in the world wearing goggles, and he is blinded by the water. Corda, he's flying around. He gets his head caught on an electric wire. His head fucking pops off like his neck is made of butter. This whole sequence is a mess.
So Katana, he's viewing from off-world. He's got like a camera.
Not off-world, from the past.
So he sees that MacLeod is at its wit's end. He's falling asleep in the theater. He wants to die. You're right. Just let him go. You don't need to send assassins with goggles and hoverboards and future tech. You send back a guy dressed normal to just push his ass down the stairs. Connor is begging for death. Just go sit at the bar next to him and talk about, oh, all my friends are gone. You could get him to kill himself. He would do it. And these guys are supposed to be immortal. They can't even beat up this old man. He's driving around in an old convertible. You can kill him easy. He's got the soft top down and it's raining. How did you survive this long? They look like the Wheelers from Return to Oz if you pulled off their wheels and their little stilty hands. It's laughably bad, but it's glorious. And you didn't even talk about the train popping that other dude's head off. That was fucking great. And they're Zeist assassins. So they're going to ambush and assassinate him, and it's laughable. The choreography of the scene, just so we can set it up for people. So old-ass MacLeod is stumbling out of a bar. He's got zero life left in him. He's almost like debating, should I let these guys kill me? I just don't know what I'm going to do until they piss him off. And the choreography goes like this. It's almost like a round city block. And it's amateurish. There is the hoverboard, which they had to change, Gene. Originally, it looked like a hoverboard, but they were afraid they were going to get sued by Back to the Future. So they changed it to be more of this like bat symbol thing that he's standing on, flying around. It looks like they're LARPers.
From you know like what it looks like? It looks like when you go to the shoe store and they're measuring your foot size. It's that.
Yes, it is like the whatever that shoe sizing thing. They put two of those on a piece of plywood and they're flying around. So now keep in mind, they're in Argentina and there were no experienced crew or people from the film industry. So a lot of the shit they just had to do themselves. They just had to set up. So they're awkwardly flying around on wires that you can almost see in a circle around this one city block, and you can see that like Lambert is like having trouble trying to balance himself, and it looks really bad. So they think, let's speed up this aerial joust. Let's make it looks like 70s Batman camp. At that point, I'm like, are they not trying? Is this again parody? It's ridiculous because things are blowing up. They have like cans from the sparks, which are like the signature here, popping off the ground. Every car light's exploding. And I know they got a $34 million budget, but $3 million went to Connery for 2 weeks of work and 20 minutes on film. So I'm going to cut them a little bit of slack, but this is like amateurish, like a stage presentation.
Big D, you mentioned that car lights were exploding everything. There are just showers of sparks from ladders. Christopher Lambert at one point is fighting with just like a pole. Like it's like a railing that he's fighting against a big ass, broadsword. But you mentioned those cans popping. I love that part. That quickening effect looked pretty good. It had a little hint of like Back to the Future there. The way they mixed the animated lighting and like the real world cans popping from the electric current. I thought it looked good.
Hold on. Think of the first Terminator.
Yeah.
When Arnold appears in the glowing ball and there's the lightning, that was 4? This is 7 years later. You couldn't do something better, And also, Gene, I learned an interesting fact on why I think the fighting scenes are so bad. Christopher Lambert, like now he's a dedicated actor, old man outfit. He insisted on fighting with real swords.
Yeah.
He cut his hand, so everybody else was afraid. So that's why there's like that hesitation. Like, okay, Gene, step 1. Clang, low, clang, high, clang. It's. I can see the screams for help everywhere in this movie.
Listen, you can talk all the shit you want, but tell me you didn't cheer when Christopher Lambert emerged from those flames with his hair just flowing in the wind.
Oh, glorious. It was like
majestic.
Jesus. It was like Jesus being reborn.
I love you, Fire Jesus. Well, Ramirez awakens during a Shakespeare performance where he died in Scotland. Drawn to Connor's location, Ramirez trades his earring for a new suit of clothes and a flight to New York. General Katana also arrives on Earth, determined to kill Connor himself. After Ramirez finds Connor and Louise, the three make a plan to take down the shield.
So we're going to try to find some answers to the madness here. And this is where I'm going to go a little behind the scenes on fun stuff that I learned here. So the whole cast, one of their favorite things was that in Argentina, when they have lunch, wine is served. So the cast was renowned for pounding shots every single lunch. Now, this is dangerous because they're like doing their own stunts and it slowed production, but it was fun. And besides everyone drinking, they're now in South America. And there was an interview with Michael Ironside to the AV Club where he told about not just drinking, but about Coke and his stunt double. He said his stunt double had a straight up Coke freak out after he binged in Argentina because he had never been anywhere where Coke was so cheap. You know, this is exactly his quote. He'd never been anywhere where Coke was so cheap. You know, you could buy a gram of cocaine for about $4 US.
What?
And you could buy a brick of it for about $150. So 2 nights before filming a huge stunt with Katana, where he was meant to fall through the floor of a subway station, Ironside's stunt double kicked down the hotel door and he was completely naked except for paint all over his testicles.
What?
He thought there were people in his room that needed to get him and he wanted a pair of sweatpants. This explains what's going on in the movie.
This explains way more than that. There is a scene that's had me puzzled, and I was going to ask you about it since the moment I saw it. Connor MacLeod, he survives the attack by the Porcupine Brothers. He's quickened now. He emerges young, and Louise sees him for the first time as a younger man. He's not this old man anymore. They're in the alley. Now, they've just essentially met. So she's like, hey, I'm part of this terrorist unit, and I'm trying to take down the shield you built. And you're like, no, I'm too old. I can't help you out, blah, blah, blah. That's the extent of their interaction so far. She touches his hair. She sees that it is no longer white, and it's full and very Scottish, apparently.
He's virile. Yeah.
And then they start kissing in this alleyway, and then he just starts fucking her against the wall. Like right there. And there's only 2 possible explanations here. One, she's trying to get the shield down by getting him up, or cocaine.
But imagine if you saw somebody out, you're single now, you're in an alley, and some beautiful woman, some temptress, some shapeshifter, whatever, comes out.
Shapeshifter.
She's gorgeous. What did you call it in Beowulf? What are they called?
A succubus.
Okay, it's a succubus. And lightning's coming out of her. She's looking like Sigourney Weaver when she's possessing Ghostbusters. You're not going to think, man, I bet she could fuck.
Yeah.
I would think that MacLeod could fuck. He's a billionaire, created the shield, and he's got that hair.
Look at the size of his head, though.
Oh, yeah, that's what she's thinking.
All right.
Yeah.
But and speaking of Christopher Lambert, obviously he puts in 120% in every film he does.
120.
I read that he wanted to quit mid-movie on this one, but he was contractually obligated to stay. And it doesn't come through like you said with his friendship with Connery, and just I guess they were drunk all the time, because that awful environment that we've had described to us with the hyperinflation and the banks coming in to run the movie, it doesn't seem to come through in anyone's performance. Christopher Lambert, throughout this film, he looks like he's having so much fun, despite, getting cut in sword fights. Michael Ironside's definitely having a blast, particularly in that gratuitous train massacre scene that goes on and on and on. The crew is just throwing dummies around on a train. They're smashing people's heads through windows. That airplane PSA, as you mentioned, Big D, it's a fucking riot. Just, showing terrified people screaming as the airplane cabins burst open and planes are crashing. How do you not have fun making this movie?
You see, but I think they're having fun. We agree that they've made a movie that they want to make, but just like if you've ever gotten stuck at work, late making a project,
yes.
The longer you're there, people start to get angry, and you can sense the passive aggressive. They're getting short with each other. And again, Michael Ironside, our good old coked up stuntman, he recalled another experience in the movie. He said, yeah, listen, I hated that script. We all did. Me, Sean, Chris, we were all in it for the money on this one. I mean, it reads as if it's been written by a 13-year-old boy, but I'd never play a barbarian swordsman before. And this was my first big evil mastermind type. I figure it was going to be something but a stupid movie, but I might as well have fun and go far over the top as I possibly could. All that eye rolling and frothing of my mouth was me deciding that if I was going to be in a piece of shit like this, I was going to be the most memorable fucking thing in it. And I think I succeeded.
Okay, I think this proves the entire theory. It's all right there. And I swear on my life that I did not know this was a thing while watching the movie. You can feel it. You can feel it coming through.
Oh, without a doubt, you can feel it.
And regarding Sean Connery, if you think that a subplot that cost $3 million, where Ramirez magically comes back to life, travels to America, does a little sword play with MacLeod, and then dies stopping a giant fan sounds stupid, you are wrong. This role in the movie is peak Sean Connery confidence. People say like, oh, James Bond and all his swagger that he had there. I am telling you, put Thunderball aside. Sean Connery shopping for clothes in Scotland, talking shit to Shakespearean actors, going on a plane for the first time. It is 10 times more entertaining than the main plot line of this film. He is intoxicating. I loved every minute of it.
He totally is. And I complained earlier that he took up 10% of the budget and he fought them for, I think it was something like 6 months, whether he was going to come back. And he said, fine, I'll come back. I will only shoot 2 weeks. He ended up only shooting 6 days. He's in the movie for what fucking seems like 10 minutes, but I think they stretched it to 20. But his parts work. And I think, Gina, it goes back to that fish out of water. Him walking around in the modern world and kind of looking around, it reminded me of Bill and Ted. You get all the historic figures coming out, flying. How does this thing stay in the air? And he's fucking good. I would rather watch him interrupt a play and just mock people than 2 hours of the darkness. And I think his comedy hints at a funnier side that kind of got forced in by him because I think he wanted it. He is a good old dirty old man perv. And I loved it on the plane where he says, I normally don't eat, but I can identify. And then he looks at the woman and goes, not all the time. Or later on, when MacLeod's girl is there and he says, is this private? It doesn't need to be. He's a dirty old man. And they do this shit a couple times. The music, when he's buying his outfit on his little Pretty Woman shopping spree, they're playing this orchestral march, like you're hunting the foxes with your dogs, or the train going out of control. We get this out of place rock jam, or the bagpipe music as he's blocking that fan you said, Gene. It's there.
Yeah, they're playing Amazing Grace on the bagpipes for Juan Sanchez Villalobos Ramirez, right? They're just acknowledging flat out, why did we make him a Spanish character who's actually Egyptian? We don't really know. It's great.
I think this is the fan from Tango and Cash from the jailbreak scene. It's a comedically large thing. You know what? You got MacLeod's opened up the door. Just jump out the door, yeah. Connery. Just jump. Get out there. He doesn't want to, and they've been throwing lines back and forth. Hey, jerk face, hit it, dude. This is where the movie goes off the fucking rails, and I'm all in for it at this point.
Well, Katana creates an uneasy alliance with David Blake to kill Connor. When Blake discovers that Naaman has revealed proof the ozone layer has healed, Blake has him imprisoned. Connor, Ramirez, and Marcus break into the prison, but Naaman dies and Ramirez sacrifices his life to save Connor and Marcus from a trap. Katana kills Blake, and Connor has one final confrontation with Katana. After decapitating him, Connor uses the quickening energy to disable the shield, and the world begins to see a night sky for the first time. Once again, Katana, seriously an idiot. The way these rules are set up, think about it. Connor MacLeod has two choices after he kills Reno and Corda. So he's reinvigorated. The quickening has got him feeling good. He can stay in the future and grow old again, live, a couple hundred more years, never bothering Katana, just doing his own thing. He's got a girlfriend now, he's probably just going to want to hang out with her, have another wife, do his thing. Or he could go back in time and face Katana. So in both situations, Katana likely wins because if MacLeod stays in the future, they never have to confront each other. And if he comes to the past, Katana's got the advantage there. But instead of waiting for Connor to come to him, the general decides to take his ass to the future. And then he makes this pact with David Blake, which we haven't really talked about. John C. McGinley's fantastic in this movie. But why does he do it? What's the advantage there? Katana knows where Connor lives. He knows where his headquarters and his hideout are. He knows what his girlfriend looks like. What does he stand to gain from an alliance with the Shield Corporation or with David Blake?
But he also seems strangely aware of Earth customs.
Oh, yeah.
He says we're not in Kansas anymore.
Right.
And I start wondering stupidly about his origin. How does he know this?
Because he's got that screen where he can see into the future. So he can just watch TV or whatever he wants.
Was he watching Wizard of Oz?
I mean, listen, it doesn't look like a whole lot of shit was going on in Zeist.
I don't know, but he's going to join the corporation. He's going to become a partner. What corporation would guard the whole Earth? Wouldn't you do a subscription-based model, Gene, where you say,
they're
okay,
charging each nation?
It seems
Or
like
you're saying extort some nations?
extort some. Yeah. Hey, guess what, England? I'm fucking upping your monthly. We're going premium. We're putting commercials on your stream. Buck up here, and no other country notices this. And it goes back to that why they fucked with the formula. It's so stupid. So again, Gene, I thought, how could we make this better? How could it have been better simply on a budget? So I went back to our good friend, ChatGPT again. So ChatGPT, I asked it, I said, give me some alternate sequels that could follow up the original Highlander. So a lot of them, one of them was similar to like Westworld, where somebody develops a technology for the ability to share experiences and memories, and then somebody who's immortal tries to corrupt that. There was one of those. A lot were kind of like Star Wars, where you had MacLeod becomes like the Luke Skywalker disenchanted. He goes off on his own, and then they need to go back and recruit him to fight against a new evil enemy. A lot of them involved getting a big group of new Highlanders together to fight a common enemy. So I'm going to give you just a couple, three here quick. See if you like any of these. So the first one was Highlander Legacy Reborn. Following the events of the original film, Connor MacLeod has set into a peaceful life, having emerged as the last immortal in defeating the villainous Kurgan. However, his tranquility is shattered when a mysterious ancient artifact known as the Elixir Stone resurfaces, revealing the existence of a hidden immortal society. A young, talented historian named Alexis MacLeod, who unknowingly inherited some immortal gifts, discovers her connection to Connor and the world of immortals. Seeking answers, they embark on a perilous journey to find him. Unaware of an evil and vengeful immortal, Lucas Kane is also hunting for the Elixir Stone. What do you think? That's a good one.
Sounds too woke.
Too woke? Okay, so we got an next one.
Why do you have a female protagonist? Why is the hero got to be a chick?
Well, I think ChatGPT's woke because I think we got another girl boss here.
Yeah,
so
of course.
this
one's
one
probably black.
No, there was no black. No, there's none. Well, again, ChatGPT didn't expressly say that, but Highlander Chronicles Unbound. So in this one, it's set in a world where immortals remain hidden from society. A young archaeologist named Maya Sullivan, another girl boss, stumbles upon an ancient manuscript. It said years have passed since MacLeod emerged victorious from his last immortal, but the weight of immortality has taken a toll. Hunted by the endless cycle of battles and loss, Connor perspective begins to shift, embracing a dark past. This is the Darth Vader one. Consumed by bitterness and disillusion, he seeks to reshape the world according to his twisted vision. Connor, known as the Darklander. Dun, dun, dun.
Oh, I like that.
Yes, he manipulates events from the shadows, orchestrating conflicts among the remaining immortals. He craves absolute power and believes that by eliminating all the other immortals, he can attain godlike status. So then there's a new young immortal named Juan Ramirez, another girl boss. She emerges as a protagonist. She goes out and rallies up a whole bunch of other immortals to come back. In the end, he realized the error of his ways. But this one's my favorite and last one. I know you don't like these, but Highlander Reawakening. This is the one that I would have liked to see. After Connor MacLeod's victory over the Kurgan, a surge of energy, the one we saw in the movie, boom, it blows out through the immortal world, awakening dormant immortals from their slumber. Among them, another girl boss, Isabelle Devereaux, a fierce warrior from the 17th century France, now thrust into the modern era. We get the fish out of water. We get Connor MacLeod becoming the old teacher that was Sean Connery.
Yep.
Isabel seeks answers to the surge and her own immortality. Connor, a seasoned Highlander, becomes her mentor, guiding her through the complexities of the immortal world. Together, they uncover a hidden conspiracy threatening the delicate balance between mortals and immortals. What do you think? I like these.
I'm just trying to imagine Christopher Lambert teaching anybody anything. It's great.
Don't you remember his Raiden? He'd be like,
"Oh yeah,
I can't help you," and he just leaves. That's the Lambert way.
All right.
I would take any of them.
The last two, I think I'd go for.
I think it would be fun. The Blast, a whole bunch of now, like Bill and Ted.
Yeah.
They wake from a slumber and they're all coming together. They're dealing with the real world. I think that would be interesting.
I thought it was going to be something like an X-Men type thing where it gets into everybody's DNA from the blast. And then you've got people with different Highlander skills, which get very tedious very quickly. So I like that version better.
No, but Gene, before we go, if you're a seasoned veteran Highlander, is it against the rules to try to build some kind of neck guard?
Yeah, I was thinking about that. I was thinking about that with the Underworld, right? In an Underworld, the vampires know their own weaknesses, and so they build armor that protects their chests and their necks, which makes perfect sense.
Because all these guys have like spaghetti necks. You could behead a guy with like a broom handle,
right?
They just pop right off.
I think it's against the rule set.
That's what I would think. It's against the code. Like it's dishonor.
It's like they can't fight in a church.
Yeah, but still. Just color it like flesh colored. You'd wear a high collar, maybe. You could do it.
Just look like a big dick.
Yes.
Now's the time of the podcast where we give our Shat score. The Shat scores are our way of telling you how many wipes this movie takes to get off your respective butts. 0 wipes is a perfect movie. It is being worried about a terrorist attack on your lakeside installation than remembering fish live in the lake. So you're safe. And 5 wipes is an absolute disaster of a movie. It is dying the minute your immortal friend comes to rescue you from corporate jail. Big D, I'll go first. This one is a 2 wiper for me. And I know I'm going to get a lot of shit for that. But I got to be honest, viewing it the way I viewed it, do I think that this movie was intentionally good? No. Do I think it's incredibly entertaining? Yes. And as we've mentioned many times, the purpose of this podcast is to tell you if the movies we loved when we were growing up were really that good. And this movie is actually better than I remember it being. And a big part of that is being old enough and understanding human nature enough to recognize what was going on here and being incredibly entertained. Because after all, a film is nothing more than the performances of its cast and the hard work of its crew. And this cast put on quite a performance. It's 2 wipes for me.
But I think you're kind of being a little, not a hypocrite, but you're being like, you're contradicting yourself. I asked a while ago, I said, if your nephew was a heavyset kid and he went out and did a race and he did better than we expected, would that be something positive?
You're saying would I handicap the score? And that's not what I'm doing here. What I'm saying is Sean Connery, Michael Ironsides, and Christopher Lambert are being incredibly entertaining in this movie. John C. McGinley as well, being incredibly entertaining in this movie. And so they're doing their jobs. They're not doing it the way that the production house would like them to have done it, but they're subversively being incredibly entertaining. They're making their own movie. They're just, the director's not in on the joke.
This is an on-screen mutiny. Maybe it goes back to that ship. This is an on-screen mutiny by the cast and everyone involved. They're impaired with substances. Lambert apparently had relations, maybe not in an alley with his co-star, but he did. So maybe this was just this was the patients, taking over control of the asylum. So I'm torn. I'm really torn. No, it's a fucking bad movie. It's bad. It's a bad movie. It's funny to dissect it and to find out what was going on. But if you watch this unaware of everything, I think the Renegade version, it's pretty fucking bad. The original has to be terrible.
Oh, it's so much worse.
It's got to be like a 7 wipe. It's got to be you shit, you fall off the toilet, it goes all over the floor, you stumble, you fall into it. Dude, I had fun watching it, but it's a fucking shit house, absolute disaster of a film. I know I throw these things around like fucking just like fucking chocolate at Easter, but this is a 5 wipe movie, dude. This is fucking
What?
It works because it doesn't work. It works ironically.
I'm not going to try to tell you to change your score. I'm not going to lobby you, but I just want to throw a couple questions your way to help you consider, right? It's a little quiz to let you figure out what kind of Highlander type is
quiz.
right for you.
You give me
pop
the pop
quiz headshot.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Okay. So did this movie look good? Sets, set design, costuming?
Good. No, they looked appropriate. Everything was fucking dark. Mm-hmm. So you couldn't tell the sets. No, I saw they were...
Did you enjoy any performances in this film?
Only because I know they were high and drunk.
No, you don't think Sean Connery was just funny and charming despite being high and drunk?
He was funny and charming because he wanted to go home.
That's not what people do.
Not because he was
getting paid either way.
He was just having a good old time. Seeing the pretty ladies and hitting on them. It was not intentionally like that.
Okay, the TV shows and the airplane PSA, did that make you laugh at all?
Fine, 4.75.
Okay, I rest my case.
4.75. This is okay, fine. That way it's still worse than the original, but it's not as bad as Student Bodies. I'm okay with that.
Okay.
Would you rather watch this or Willow?
Oh, this 100%.
Oh, I don't know.
I really had a good time with this. I would watch this again.
I did too, but not for the right reason.
What is the right reason to have fun with a movie?
Because it takes you on a journey. I'm watching this like we're watching like Westworld. I'm looking for clues, like things written on the wall, like help, send funding. I want to leave. You shouldn't be contractually bound to finish a film, and that's why the people stay there.
All right. Well, with 4 3/4 wipes from Big D and 2 wipes from me, that gives us an average wipe score of 3.375 wipes for Highlander 2, The Quickening, Renegade version.
Ooh, Renegade version. So, Gene, that now places this alone in the 254 spot. It is slightly better than Weird Science and the original Batman. See, that's there's something wrong here. Your goddamn 2 wipe score. You sure that's not right, is it?
I'm just a contrarian.
Are you sure of that math?
Yeah, so 2 plus 4.75 is 6.75 divided by 2 is 3.375.
I don't even want to read this.
Okay.
How is that possible?
Generally speaking, and I'm not trying to just cover my own ass here, but generally speaking, when we look at scores like a Batman or something like that, that's horribly misplaced. It's somebody went off the rails on a negative review.
I think there's something.
What were the scores for Batman?
I don't even want to say. It says here that Roger gave it a 3. I gave it a 3.75, which I cannot remember, and you gave it a 3.5.
Okay. Yeah.
I think there's something wrong with the technology. I got to call our IT support and get them to check that out. So I get, fuck, that makes no goddamn sense. 255, slightly better than Weird Science, Batman, The Burbs, slightly worse than Silverado, Rudy, and Hook. There's no way. I'm going to get out the calculator.
The thing is that and this happens because we've been doing this for so long. Batman is worse than we remember it being. That's the thing. Is that because if you ask me right now, the original Batman, what would you give it? I would say 1.5, 2 wipes. Yeah. But if all 3 of us came in under 3, it means that wasn't a great movie.
Yeah, if there's anybody out there who knows coding or how to make a plugin or an attachment, an API for ChatGPT, I think we should train ChatGPT about what the wipe score is. It has perspective. Let's ask ChatGPT.
See, this is going to get us into the same hot water that you put this idea in the minds of the peasants, of the plebes, that they had a voice in this, that they get to score. And what happened as a result is we keep getting week after week people saying, well, why don't we get to vote on it? And the reason why is because you cannot be objective. And the reason why is that you haven't recently watched the movie and we have no way to verify that you recently watched it. I know when Big D and I were reviewing a movie that he saw it recently, like within the last couple of weeks, right? I don't know that about everybody out there. And it becomes a popularity contest.
Yeah, I can't trust you to watch it, people, because I couldn't trust myself. Every fiber of
certainly
my body,
couldn't trust Roger.
Every fiber in my being was like, no, don't make it stop. Make it stop. I wish death upon myself, like Connor MacLeod, until I had more fun in this podcast recording than I did watching this film.
You needed to watch it with me. We would have had a blast.
I needed to get King B to give me some micro doses of mushroom or some micro doses of mushrooms. I think I would have liked it then.
Did you even take any of those?
I did not, because I'm an old man who's paranoid. Back in the day, I would have loved it.
They were micro doses.
It doesn't matter. I'm now scared. Once you have a child, like I'm afraid of just going off the rails, getting naked on top of a table in Vegas.
Painting your testicles and asking for sweatpants.
Yeah, kicking down the door or screaming at people on a plane that somebody's not real.
All right, Ryan in Madison, Wisconsin. I know that you weren't expecting a great wipe score on this, so I hope we didn't disappoint. And thank you for opening my eyes to the Renegade version of Highlander 2, The Quickening. I really, really enjoyed it much more than the original Highlander. Big D, what do we have coming up next week?
Gene, next week, a teenage hacker finds himself framed for the theft of millions of dollars from a major corporation. Master hacker Dade Murphy, a.k.a. Zero Cool, a.k.a. Crash Override, has been banned from touching a keyboard for 7 years after crashing over 1,500 Wall Street computers at the age of 11. Now keen to get back in front of the monitor, he finds himself in more trouble than ever. This was commissioned by Jody G. And I remember Ash was all fucking excited about this. Maybe she'll come out of retirement. Maybe she'll she'll reappear.
It's a fantastic movie. A fantastic soundtrack. I'm very excited for this one. It's got the Halcyon and on from Orbital.
Oof. I have no idea. I'm coming into this one blind.
You're kidding me.
No, completely blind.
You're going to see weird Angelina Jolie boob. It's incredible.
Yeah, she's a weird chick though.
No,
Blood
but
Vial, Billy Bob Thornton.
We still haven't quite figured out what's going on with the boob in this movie. You'll know when you see it, what I'm talking about.
Is it misshapen? Is it? Like, what's her name? Fox from the Transformers. What's her name?
Megan Fox?
Is it
I thought that was her thumb.
Yes, that's what I mean. Is it something like that? Like, does she have like really long nipples?
No. It's just...
flat?
There's just a mystery behind it. And none of us have been able to figure it out for years.
Is there areola, like off to the side? Does she have like a wandering eye?
You have to wait and see.
Oh, now you're killing me.
Yeah, go watch it.
I do.
Go watch it tonight. I'm going to watch it tonight.
I think I might too.
All right. Well, thank you, Jody G, for commissioning our upcoming film. And thank you again to Ryan for commissioning Highlander II, the Quickening Renegade version. Thank you to all the commissioners who make this podcast possible. That concludes this week's episode of Shat the Movies. Be sure to follow us on social media and share with a friend. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, and Instagram at Shat the Movies. Email us, host at shatpod.com. Support the podcast by shopping our Amazon affiliate link, buying our merch, or by commissioning your own movie. Find all that information by visiting our website, shatpod.com. Also, check out our sister podcast, Shat on TV, where we review TV series such as Lovecraft Country, Westworld, True Detective, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, and Watchmen. Find all information on our website, shatpod.com/TV, wherever fine podcasts can be found, including Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, and YouTube. Be sure to subscribe. And if you stop by Apple Podcasts, please leave a 5-star review. It helps the podcast grow. On behalf of my co-host, Big D, I'm Gene Lyons. Join us next week for the following movie.
Hidden beneath the world we know is the world they inhabit.
Dave?
Yeah, Mom?
What are you doing?
I'm taking over a TV network.
Well, finish up, honey. Get to sleep.
They're hackers.
Hackers penetrate and ravage private and publicly owned computer systems.
Hack the planet!
Hack the planet! It's not just something they do.
Sure this sweet machine's not going to waste?
Are you challenging me?
It's who they are.
I win, you wear a dress on our date.
And if I win, so do you.
They can crack any code. And get inside any system.
Hello? Mr. Gill, according to our records, you're dead.
What?
But this time...
Come here, look at this.
It's some kind of virus.
Unless $5 million is transferred to the following account, I will capsize 5 oil tankers.
They just hacked the wrong guy.
Game's over.
Whoever wrote this needs somebody to take the fall.
He's about to commit the perfect computer crime.
You've created a virus that's going to cause a worldwide disaster.
And they're about to take the blame.
A hacker planted the virus. But it's the perfect cover.
We're being framed.
Can we be allies? I don't play well with others.
Oh, wow, we are fried.
Okay, let's nail it.
Now,
You're not good enough to beat me. Yeah, maybe I'm not, but we are.
they're the only ones who can prevent a catastrophe.
I know how to stop this guy. They'll trace you like that. Are you nuts? Come at me!
Unlike any the world has ever seen.
Never send a boy to do a woman's job.
Hackers of the world unite.
Cops on the building. I need more time.
This is the end, my friend.
United Artists welcomes you to the new world.